Dance Kid Dance Tour. Live in Des Moines. Wells Fargo Arena, Friday, April 25th. With special guests, Beartooth and Morgan Wade. Get tickets now at HighVTix.com. It's about to get heavy. Shinedown, live in concert. For more, visit shinedown.com.
Come on, boys, come on here. Come on, Johnny, boy. Watch out.
Murph and Andy, proudly presented by Ramsey Subaru and BMW of Des Moines. Live and on demand across Iowa everywhere. From the Channel Seed Studios. This is Murph and Andy. Murph and Andy. Connected by Cellular Advantage.
We're glad to have you with us here on a Murph and Andy Monday. Andy, can you remember way back when I wasn't sick and I didn't have this cold? It's like
you've had
6 to 8 months ago.
Few sicknesses this winter, and I do remember the season starting off with you proclaiming that you weren't getting a flu shot. How's that feeling now?
Well,
yeah,
I don't know. If this is the flu, not as good.
Not a guarantee that would have stopped it, but seatbelts aren't a guarantee either.
Yeah, I don't know. I just still remember
go back and get that again.
Worst flu I had was when I had a flu shot. It's been hard to get over that.
That's
mentally.
not what caused it.
Well, what do you mean that's not what caused it? They put flu into your body.
No, they put a dead virus in there.
Well,
you
yeah,
cannot get the flu from the flu shot. That's
then
medicine.
Why was that the year I got the worst flu?
It was a coincidence. You already had it, and it's not
right
a guarantee.
Here now. Yeah. It's right here in my mind. Well, it's cause and effect. It's hard to get over that, but
that's not what caused it.
All right. So you say. Guest House Tavern and Oyster in West Des Moines sets the table for sports and more today. Coming up, the Audi Deke, the Chalk 4, and do we have 2 lies, 1 truth?
Yeah, I got one of those.
Can't wait. Love that. Guest House Tavern, Northwest-inspired Midwestern hospitality. Right now, high or low since the last show.
Presented by Wealth Charter Retirement Planning and Tax.
Wealth Charter, 25 years in business, and Tim Hawkins and company, obviously still going with their busy season up there, but they're probably counting down the days until tax day, and then things lighten up for them a little bit, but they can still take your call up there. I'll go high here because we are, this is the last day of the month of March, and therefore the year is a quarter of the way done, which always makes me feel a little bad when people put it that way because it feels like your life is just racing in front of your eyes. But this is the worst part of the year. These 3 months are the worst 3 months, and we are done with them now. And that's great. Now, we still got to get through Drake Relays. So, we've got at least one bad week of weather.
At least
ahead.
one blizzard coming or torrential rain or, I don't know, what do they call what's that new term we learned a few years ago? Derecho. Something's coming in late April.
It could happen, but we are done with January, February, and March. That's great.
That is a good high. Thank you for that, because I'm going low, but the part of the low is not that I was helping our friend Bryce Miller's brother Brian and his wife Melissa move. A bunch of friends helped out, and by me helping out, I mean I mainly sat there and offered support, occasional encouragement, cheered a couple of people who moved big objects. And our friend Ken Pink came down, brought his trailer, helped with the move, because God bless Brian and Melissa, they sold their house when they were out in San Diego for a month. The house sold at that time. They're out there with Bryce, and there's so much to do back here. But of course, their priorities were in the right place. But they got back and had a lot to do, still have a lot to do. But it was nice to help them out. So that's not the low part. The low part is I always have my phone on silence because of moments like this, broadcasting and on television. So I was supposed to be on KIIC radio, Thunder Country in Albia, with our good friends, Jason Summers and Joe Millage. They do this Stump the Chumps every year. I've been in Stump the Chumps. I'm one of the chumps. I've been a chump for like, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And every year they have me on. They ask so little of me. And I just look forward to being on with those guys. And my phone was on silent. I forgot to pay attention to it coming in. And they were calling me repeatedly, trying to get me on for this spot they had been promoting that I was going to be on their show. And it made me feel terrible. And it was a low, and I let them down, and I really felt bad about it. So sorry, Thunder Country.
Was this while you were sick? This was happening with the
this was Saturday morning. I was still sick, but I was, kind of helping move, or at least offering emotional support. Nobody really wanted to hug me or get too close to me. But yeah, I missed this spot. You know how good those guys are to us, and they're good to us even after you went down there one time and actually, I mean, you just burned the place to the ground. You roasted Thunder Country, and the entire community basically made it sound like the Dukes of Hazzard, and they still welcomed us back.
It was back when people would ask me to roast stuff, and I used to do that.
You're good at it.
A couple of times I got paid to roast people and businesses and stuff, and I look back on that now, I'm like, I don't feel good about that. That didn't feel good.
It makes people so happy. And I remember you would get, because our friend Willie Farrell still does this. Mm-hmm. He'll get paid to go roast, and it's usually the CEO or the general manager. That's who people want roasted. And you probably had this experience too. Once in a while, you'll get a sensitive CEO or a sensitive GM that they just don't really enjoy it, or they don't like it. And that happened to me once with one of our Christmas parties at WOI. The top guy in charge did not appreciate the video that I had put together, and everybody was kind of looking over at him to get their cues, whether it was okay to laugh or not. I thought it was funny. A lot of the workers thought it was funny, but the managers were scared to laugh. And that's kind of what these things are like. Did you ever have when you did the roasting, did you ever have anybody that was sensitive about some of the intel you'd been giving?
Not that I knew of. And looking back now, a couple of the times I did it, I still just kind of felt bad about it, because the employees were like giving me all these talking points and stuff. They're like, oh yeah, make sure to bring up this and bring up that.
Don't tell them I gave you the information.
Yeah. It was just like, oh, and here's something you can really make fun of. And they were all just, throwing stuff my way. I had to, pick and choose. I couldn't possibly have time for all of it. But, in retrospect, I don't know, I was about 30 years old when I was doing that. So in retrospect now, I'm like, I probably shouldn't have gone there. That was another lifetime ago. I don't like roasts. I think they're funny when the real pros do them on Comedy Central. Those are really funny. Those
they are
really
funny,
good.
But they also are uncomfortable. I mean, there are times when I'm watching where I just want to hide because I have such secondhand embarrassment.
Yeah. And the key is to be funny first and insulting second, but you have to be both. And boy, it seems like just sometimes the balance is a little off, and they're more insulting than they are funny.
Right.
And that's the premise of I don't really like the premise of the whole thing. Here's somebody that we're going to bring up and just rip on them.
Make them feel terrible.
Yeah. It's just like, I've been to a few like wedding receptions and rehearsal dinners where the people took it as a roast. Some of the speakers like used it as a roast, which it's absolutely not a roast. And some of the stuff that they would say about, the groom or the bride, or, the father of the bride in one case, a really bad case. And you're just like, Oh God, but because what if you do insult them on like the biggest day of their life? What if your intentions are off kilter a little bit, right? If your aim is off, it's just, you wouldn't want to do that to somebody. I don't love those.
If you've been there when the mic starts getting passed around at a wedding reception or something, you start to get a little uncomfortable because there's the one person that's been drinking too much and is looking at this as, night at the Chuckle Hut, instead of, it's supposed to be a tribute to this wonderful vow of marriage and togetherness and the love that they found each other. But I've been there, and it's usually the best man or the maid of honor who just sometimes doesn't read the room, because there's grandparents there and aunts and uncles and people from a different generation. And I was there one time at a really proper, highfalutin wedding reception. The maid of honor was just like, I'm just surprised that she settled down with one guy, because in college they ran through the room. She went through some guys. We were like, wow, another guy, and sometimes 2, 3, one weekend. And I'm just so glad she found him, because we never could picture her with just one guy. And everybody's just slouching down into their chairs and looking over at grandma and thinking, God,
and it's amazing that happens too, right? Because it's like, what do you got? The combination of alcohol and men and women in their 20s, their judgment,
alcohol,
who've known each other for a long time and, kind of enjoy offending their parents and other people their parents' age, that kind of stuff. You combine those together. Well, gee, what do you think you're going to get from time to time? You're going to get some pretty inappropriate speeches. Really, what they should do in those situations is the best man and the maid of honor need to say something that's tradition, but everybody else, there should just be like, okay, we are picking one person to speak on behalf of this family and one person to speak on behalf of the other family, and that's it. Because nobody goes to a wedding and a reception or anything and leaves saying, man, I wish we had heard more speeches.
Yes, and longer.
No one says it. Yeah,
and no one talked
speeches.
long enough either.
Or when the best man starts crying, and he can't get his words out. I don't want to get emotional, and then he was like, oh.
Best man, more like better man.
Yeah, it's kind of sweet, but then you're just like, get a hold of yourself, man. Jeez. I knew we shouldn't have opened the bar until after these were over.
I know it. Hey, shout out to the San Diego Snapdragon, new team in the MLS. Just a wonderful tribute to our friend Bryce Miller this weekend. Put the jersey, the kit out there with the Infinity logo on the back, and they're sending that to Bryce's family, the jersey, and some flowers out there in front of the pitch, and a nice photo. And wouldn't you know it, he's in the Murph and Andy merch in the photo there from AKC Marketing at Iowa Everywhere.
That's an Infinity logo. I was wondering. I thought it was a lazy 8.
It's an Infinity logo, right?
Yeah.
AD, I'm looking for backup here.
It is kind of, yeah. Is that what their logo is? Or does that mean something special? I don't mean to
I would
make fun
think
of
it means something special, like, the legacy goes on, infinity type thing.
I hope that's what it means. Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's a cool looking kit there for the San Diego Snapdragon, which is a flower, right?
Yeah, it is a flower. It's a common flower people grow around here. I don't know what it means in San Diego. Might mean something else. We made the mistake of looking it up on the Urban Dictionary, as Bryce would have.
Yes.
Yep.
And he would never think of the team the same way after that.
No, not after that definition. My goodness. I think we may be having some trouble with our Facebook feed today.
Oh, no, not again.
I think we're back up. Yeah.
Are we back up?
We
welcome Facebook
I don't see
followers.
anybody yet from Facebook, but
yeah, the problem was those overthinking people infringe on our time every once in a while.
Ooh.
And we only have so much.
Facebook doesn't allow you to go live on 2 separate feeds essentially
Okay.
within. So yeah, so I think we're back to normal now that they.
If you are catching us via your Facebook feed, would you put a little note over in the? There we go.
Yeah, let us
William
know.
says, okay, he's there. All right, good.
All right, that's
it's all
Gilly.
fixed. Good.
All right, that's good. So, but
Thank you,
what
Gilly.
you're telling me basically, AD, is war with overthinking?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we knew this was going to be an issue. I even said,
There we
hey,
go.
we need to
All
put
right.
like a 60-second clock at the end of their show. So that, you know, and I don't blame Cade at all. I've been in that seat. That's a tough place to
Who are you blaming?
end a show.
Yeah,
Out
cut
with
to the
it.
chase. Yeah.
Scott Sipker. Yeah, absolutely. He won't shut up. Just shut up. It's our turn.
Okay. All right. Well, you can interact on YouTube, and you can email Murph_Andy at iowaeverywhere.com. On X, it is Murph_Andy. It does appear we're back on Facebook, so thank you for that. It is all powered by the Cellular Advantage, proudly representing U.S. Cellular since 1993 with 35 regional locations. This one is Urbandale if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or X at the time. The Galaxy S24 Ultra.
Yeah, we'll probably have to update those videos from time to time.
Yeah, that's the tough cell phone store is like it changes constantly.
Whoa, don't zoom in too much on those model
wait,
numbers. Yeah.
Hang on, is
still
that an
selling
iPhone
those?
6?
Rommel may have a full new line of smartphones in there. We shot that a few months ago, but yeah, that
changes
man,
fast.
That business
Yeah,
changes.
Rommel
so
is
fast.
such a good dude, too.
Such a good dude.
Man, he will take care of you there. That's the store we go to. All right, let's get the buzz here on a Monday.
The Buzz. Brought to you by Logier Heating and Cooling.
Logier Heating and Cooling, dedicated to providing heating and cooling services for Des Moines area families since the caveman days. So good to have Logier Heating and Cooling with us. The Buzz, Andy, the men's Final Four is set in college basketball, and it is all chalk. It is 4 number 1 seeds. Second time this has happened. The previous time was 2008. So coming up here, we have, let me see, we will have Florida against Auburn and then Houston Duke. So the SEC is guaranteed of having one team in the championship game. And Power 4 conferences, 3 of the 4 are represented, no Big Ten team. So the Big Ten drought will get to 25 years without a championship, which really is hard to believe.
Yeah, and what do we have in the Elite Eight? We had all 1-2 games, in the exception of 1-3 game, right? So
women's tournament's the same.
Yeah.
Right now there are 2 ones in, 2 number 1 seeds in. UCLA is in. South Carolina is in. And then tonight there are 2 games that feature 1 against 2. You have TCU and Texas in a 1-2 game. And who's the other side? UConn, USC, which would be a much more intriguing game if Juju Watkins were in that game. You'd have Juju Watkins and Paige Beckers going against each other, but Watkins is out with the torn ACL. So there is the possibility in the 2 Final Fours of having 8 number 1 seeds.
Well, on the men's tournament side, I think this happens so rarely. I mean, we've been pointing out, I think this year, for some reason, we've been pointing out just, how that's only happened once. It was 2008. We're kind of looking back on that year for some reason. Maybe we knew this was coming. But it happens so rarely that it's kind of fun, right? Now, I mean, if this happened 3 years in a row, we would all believe there's a problem with the NCAA tournament. There's something wrong. We don't want to see this. But the fact that it is a rarity makes it something kind of to celebrate, because, a lot of us have watched these games. We've seen some really good games in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. Not all of them were good, but we've seen some really good games that have been, exciting. These 1 seeds got challenged. I think by and large, this has been a pretty good tournament that people have good things to say about. So if every now and then you get all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four, well, that is the way the tournament is supposed to be. It's the way that the bracket is set up for this to be, the highest likelihood of happening. And, for the large part, through the last few rounds of the tournament, you've seen the top seeds in there playing against each other and working their way toward an Elite Eight where it's 1 versus 2, and we saw that almost universally.
We didn't see Cinderella, and we didn't have many buzzer beaters. There was just one overtime game. But I think what you want in most sports you follow, don't you want the best teams playing at the end for the championship? And these are the 4 best teams. So I think this is a interesting and an exciting Final Four. I do think there are people who are bummed that it is hard to imagine in the NIL era a Cinderella team winning 3 or 4 games in a row when you're going up against more talent, the much bigger payroll, and with so many mid-majors losing their stars each year because there's basically unrestricted player movement. So I think the tournament is changing some, but Drake won a game in this tournament and, was not embarrassed by any means against Texas Tech. So I do think this is interesting, but let's get a quickie poll from WCI Pools and Spas in Ames and Urbandale.
The NCAA men's basketball tournament has been more interesting than usual or more boring than usual?
Well, I don't think there's any way that we can, claim with a straight face that, the plight of our own teams doesn't have some kind of an effect on this. Yeah. Iowa State left early. Drake won a game, and that was fun. I think it was more interesting than usual for just hardcore Drake fans. Iowa wasn't involved in all, neither was UNI. So, for those sets of fans, I think it has been, there's been less of a local tie, local interest to it. But look, I just think we've seen some really exciting games in the Sweet 16 and, leading up to this Final Four. And I've enjoyed watching them. I think it's been, with the exception of the fact that our own teams haven't gone deep in the tournament, and that's a big exception.
That's a big exception.
I think it's been more interesting than usual.
I've enjoyed the tournament a lot, and I'm excited for next weekend. I think as you guys said, these Final Four games set up great. It's going to be a really good championship game regardless of how it goes. That being said, I do think it's less interesting without the Cinderellas, without the buzzer beaters, just generally. Each game I've sat down and watched, I've really enjoyed. But generally, the kind of buzz around it, again, the highlights of the Cinderella teams, the buzzer beaters, things like that, it's just been missing from this tournament for a variety of different reasons. So while I've enjoyed it, and I certainly haven't hated the tournament, it has been slightly less interesting for me.
I'm looking forward to this Final Four for all the reasons we stated. I'm going to vote less interesting for one reason, and I think it is a real problem. And if you've been watching this tournament, I think you'll agree with me. And that is the nonstop huddle of referees around the monitors in the final 2 minutes of these games. The final 2 minutes of many of these games have taken 20 minutes. Because it's one after another. It's not quickly resolved. Sometimes it's really obvious, but they still stand there for 2.5 minutes. And then they check with Gene Stanitor, and it goes on and on and on. And then they go beyond what they're even reviewing. Who last touched the ball? All right, now we have to find out the exact 100ths of a second on the clock and change the clock because it turns out that that's not exactly where it should be too. And just all this excitement, you get to the 2 minutes where everything is reviewable and the officials don't want to be embarrassed by missing something that later haunts them. So they constantly stop the flow of the game, and it's just standing around. And that has made it less interesting to me. And I don't know how they fix this, because you want the calls to be right, but we're micromanaging every single clock dispute and possession dispute and who touched the ball.
And then we get upset though when there are certain calls that are not reviewable, right?
Yeah.
Well, why isn't that reviewable? We talk out of both sides of our mouth. We want there to be more reviewable calls, and we want there to be fewer reviewable calls. At the same time, we want it to move faster, but we want them to get all of the calls right and use all of the technology that they have at their fingertips. And they can't do all of those things simultaneously because they're mutually exclusive. You have to just, if you want to speed up the game, you just have to resign yourself to the possibility of human error. And it's hard to do that in an age where we have all of these camera angles. The cameras are so sharply focused on things, and you can see, plain as day when officials screw up a call. So I don't know what we're going to do. This is definitely not the only year that's ever happened. I think it's probably happened every year in the last 5 years, but it is a problem because you're absolutely right. No matter if they're doing it because you want them to do it or you don't want them to do it, they're slowing the game down and they're killing the momentum and they're making fans like stand in anticipation to the point where like the show is the referee. I mean, I hate that point where the commentators are spending as much time, communicating back and forth with their, referee expert than they are talking about the actual play of the game.
And it gets the rules change. There are many more things reviewable, and it's up to the official's discretion inside of 2 minutes. So at the time where it should be its most exciting, that's when it's stopped the most, and there's so much standing around. They've got to figure something out. I would go back to allowing human error, just like there is in all walks of life, but that toothpaste is out of the tube. LSU did not reach the Final Four for the second year in a row, and a reporter asked Kim Mulkey about it.
Jaden Smith, KLSU Sports. Coach, it's the second straight year you guys get eliminated in the Elite Eight. Yeah.
Terrible or is that good?
Terrible.
Is it? How many Final Fours you play in?
None.
So it's probably pretty good, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
I can't stand her. She's awful. I mean, seriously.
She's a great coach, but she just is mean. I mean, she is just rude.
And what she says doesn't make any sense. It's just
so condescending.
It's just a condescending cheap shot. The reporter is asking, a legitimate question, or he's on a legitimate path to a question. He's wondering what's going on there. It's been a couple of years. So
it is a high standard, but she's created that standard. She's
and she
really
can answer
successful
that.
coach, and she's in the know.
She enjoys being snide and making a subject of the media, deflecting the blame away from herself, and attacking the media. You can hear the others in that room who are laughing at that, like that's funny, enabling her to do that.
She is in the bubble.
She sucks.
She is in the bubble. Did you see her go out on the court? Thanks, AD. AD's got a photo of this for those who are watching. She is all the way on the court, as she often is, both feet on the court in an active play that's happening right behind her. In fact, Andy, of the three players in this scrum for the basketball, she is the second closest. Yeah, and then actually her feet are the closest.
First. Yeah.
And the official is right there, and it will not and did not call a technical on her. I mean, she is on the court constantly, and you can't miss her because she looks like a peacock.
Right. Somebody could have said, Coach, you were awfully close to that play. You were on the floor. Do you think you need to try to take a step back or something? How long do you play basketball? How many women's games you played in, buddy?
Official tries to tee her up. How many Final Fours you play in, sweetie? Oh, none? And you going to call a tech on me? I'm in the know.
She sucks.
Oh, so 2 years ago today, Andy, as we revisit, we've done this a couple of times the past couple of weeks, but there won't be many more times we can do this, but it was historic. 2 years ago today, South Carolina, 42-game winning streak, and Iowa brings down the Gamecocks. Caitlin Clark, 41 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds. And South Carolina has not lost in the NCAA tournament since.
That is, in my mind, the most memorable Caitlin Clark game of all time. It's the most memorable women's basketball game in my mind. It was a thrashing. It was Caitlin Clark looking as dominant as, I mean, there have been men's players who've been that dominant in a game, but I don't remember anybody looking more unguardable, more in control of a game than Caitlin Clark looked in that one, and an audience looking more impressed and shocked. This was South Carolina. They were so big, so talented. You know, I don't remember what the line was in that game, but
13.
Guessing was, double digits, and they were heavily favored. But she just came out. It was just bomb squad. And then not only, when she wasn't bombing threes, she was making incredible passes to her teammates. She was making her presence felt defensively. I mean, she was all over the floor. She was in control there.
I think for a lot of people, this is when, like, nationally, it all became real, because she had built up some level of recognition throughout her career at Iowa, and then throughout that tournament and the triple-double against Louisville and things like that. But that Final Four game against the, vaunted South Carolina, and she played that well, and Iowa won, it really took it to another level that is probably the highest she's been.
And South Carolina, like UConn, is made up a starting lineup of All-Americans, like 5-star players on the bench even. And it really is a remarkable accomplishment. As I was watching the Ringer Bill Simmons documentary on Max right now on the Celtics, and it's like a 5 or 6 part series. But there's one of the episodes is dedicated to Larry Bird and how the Celtics got him. And when you're reminded that the other players on that Indiana State team and going undefeated and ultimately losing to Magic Johnson and Michigan State in the championship game, it is a little bit like this in Caitlin Clark getting Iowa in back-to-back championship games, because it's really difficult to do when you're up against these juggernauts, but she was that good. And I remember how hard that was for Don Staley to admit in the post-game press conference. Even though Caitlin Clark won the Don Staley Award like 4 years, Don Staley after the game said, well, she was everything we thought she was. So the points, the rebounds, the assists, the turnovers. She couldn't help but
she needed
also
a little
get
time.
a jab in there.
Yeah, she needed some time to process, and she came around.
She did.
But Peter Venkman here, Peter Venkman, I love that name, brings up a good point. I mean, it wasn't just Caitlin Clark. I mean, Lisa Bluter had an excellent defensive strategy. Monica Sonano had a really good game. She spread the ball around, and her teammates all did their job. And I can just kind of remember after that game was over, that's when she took that like slow, I don't think she went all the way around the court, but she made, maybe a third of the way around the court and then into the tunnel, and the cameras just stayed on Caitlin Clark, followed her back there. I've got the right game there, right, guys? And she's going down the tunnel, and you see all the Iowa donors are out there lining up, wanting to give her a high five. And the cameras just didn't want to leave Caitlin Clark at that point, because, I mean, it was absolutely of all the times you were surprised and not surprised at the same time, is there ever a better example of that than that game? Because you knew who Caitlin Clark was. You knew what she was capable of.
Still didn't think Iowa was going to beat South Carolina that night. I mean, I had made plans to return home.
Yeah. You just
South
thought
Carolina had won 42 games in a row.
They're too big. Even if she goes off for 40 plus points,
which she did.
So what? They will remain ahead of her. But every time they would do that, she would close the gap or extend the lead with a huge three. And they just could not solve her in that game. They weren't close to solving her in that game. I will never forget that night.
But your point is a good one, though. When you have somebody that good, like Larry Bird was with Indiana State, to win those kind of games, you have to have a coach with a good plan, which Bluter had, and then the other players on the team, when they are called on because Clark is drawing a double team or a triple team, you have to make those shots or make that pass or play good defense or rebound the ball. And they all did that. You can't beat anybody with one player. And it all came together for Iowa that night. So, yeah, that and the win over LSU in last year, that was the most electric atmosphere I can remember being around those games. Additional hot topics. Audi Crook's post that she is not going in the transfer portal. People kind of divided on this. Some like it. I'll read it to you for those who can't see it. Dear Cyclone Nation, thank you to all the coaches and fans that have supported me on this journey. After much thought and consideration, quit asking. I'm right where I want to be. Let's run it back. Loyal, forever true. Now, there were some fans who, as they started to read this, thought, oh, man, transfer portal. And some of those fans enjoyed it and thought, well, that's clever. Some feel like she had to do this because she's been asked or she wouldn't be posting this. And some people feel like just quietly tell your teammates and coach, and you don't need to make a post that you are staying, where that would normally be the expectation, but these are different times. What do you think, Andy? You like this?
Yeah, I do like it. I think these are the times that we're living in. And I also think it's inspiring to her teammates, current or possible future, who are thinking about Iowa State or thinking about their future. And they see that Audi Crooks is staying, not just staying, but proud to proclaim that she's staying. And, she put her name on the line right there. She said, yeah, I am staying. Don't keep asking me, whether it's other coaches, whether it's fans. Hey, are you leaving or anything? No.
Right.
No, I told you I'm staying. Stop asking. That's the fans love to see that. Her teammates who want to play with her love to see that. Maybe it's not the Iowa nice that we expect all the time, where you're just supposed to be, completely humble about all these things. But this is the day and age. First of all, it's just kind of fun to see something that runs countercurrent to what seems like every other athlete's social media post about their future.
There's nothing mean about it. I do think that young people, maybe all of us, have this heightened sense of things these days because social media can make you feel like that's the whole world. Mm-hmm. And, not everybody was asking, is Audi Crooks leaving? I'm sure that somebody, probably an anonymous person, probably posted something about, hey, I'm hearing rumors that Audi Crooks is leaving. Mm. There's always someone who does that with a star player. There are a lot of people that don't put their name on their posts and they're anonymous and they like to stir things up. There's trolls out there. And I think sometimes it can start to feel like you have an exaggerated sense of what the average person is actually thinking or talking about. But I know that happens to me because of social media. You read your Facebook posts or you read your X or Twitter or Instagram or whatever it is, and you start to think that this is what everybody's talking about. This is what everybody's thinking. And then like on RVTV, we go out there and we realize, oh, most Cyclone and Hawkeye fans are actually pleasant to each other. Yeah. They're not mean.
They're not on social media at all. Right.
Yeah. So I can see both sides of this, but I think the most important thing here is what you said, that she wanted to step up, put it to rest, and show everybody that she has no intention of going anywhere else.
Well, and I think it also just speaks to the day and age that we live in right now, is that I don't think any fans can ever feel totally sure about their players on their team, and they probably shouldn't. Yeah. The moment they do, they're going to get burned. So they wonder. And Iowa State had a disappointing season.
Yeah.
So, and she's great, and she still has 2 full years ahead of her.
Addie Brown too.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's naive to think that you don't have to worry about that. So you have to, you may know Audi Crooks inside and out. You may know that there's no way she's going to leave, but you also know that she is a known valuable commodity, and that other schools should be coming after her, should be reaching out to her to see what it would take to get her out of Ames. So you have to be, astute enough to know that that's out there. And when you do, and you put it together with the fact that they had a disappointing season, I think it's perfectly logical to wonder if maybe she's leaving. And therefore, when you see a post like this that is that clear, I think it makes you feel good. And I think also, though, it really does set a tone for teammates, current or potential teammates. They can look at that and say, and you can read that and just be like, okay, there ain't no hidden messaging here.
No.
She's saying what she means and what she's doing. And if you want to come to Iowa State, you want to stay at Iowa State, you're going to be teammates with Audi Crooks.
And she's first team all Big 12, but they also got a little humbled this season. So I would expect her to come back, work harder, and be better next season. By the way, Fairway Frank, really relieved because they did a lot of commercials together, Audi Crooks and Fairway Frank. So won't have to reshoot those. Andy's alma mater, Drake University, since our last show, has hired a new head coach, really well thought of guy. No surprise there. Eric Henderson, Hendo, they call him. Wife and 4 kids, South Dakota State for 6 years, won 4 Summit League titles, succeeded TJ Otzelberger at South Dakota State. They're friends. He also, Hendo, played for Greg McDermott at Wayne State. He played for Maquoketa Valley in high school. A lot of ties here, star player, and was a graduate manager for Iowa State University under Greg McDermott. So he's your coach, Andy, and he is a guy that people cannot wait to tell you how much they think of him.
Yeah, I don't know him. I'm aware of all of his connections. But I trust Brian Harden. I was impressed at the speed at which this happened. It was very quick. Brian Harden said, I'm going underground. You may not hear from me for a while, but then we started hearing from him like pretty quickly. So I think it's pretty clear. He knew who he wanted to get, and this may have been the one and only guy that he even approached. So, everybody sounds good at first. Every coaching hire makes lots of sense. So, you have to reserve some judgment, but at the same time, he has a lot of the other elements that we saw in the previous 2 coaches. Iowa ties to Greg McDermott, acquaintances with other coaches that we like and respect a good deal. I mean, the guy is just, accepted by association, I think. I mean, you just look at me like, okay, well, all of the places that he's been and the people that he knows and has worked under, those all check out with us. So I think I'm okay. But, more than anything, I will never forget the coaching search that took place at Iowa State after they pushed Larry Eustacia. Remember that, Murph?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
It was
Cluster F.
excruciating.
Yeah.
It was such a damn mess. Bruce Vandevelde didn't know what to do. We had video of various coaches flying into the Ames airport, driving onto campus. It was one guy after another. And then you found out they weren't taking the job or didn't want the job. And that was just an awful process. And they ended up settling on Wayne Morgan. That was such a mess. And I know the Cyclone fan base was just, their skin was crawling. And that is what you want to avoid. Right. That makes a school look so bad because, gosh, every next guy in knows that there's a problem. Well, why didn't this guy take the job? Or, why am I so low on their list? You know, I mean, basically you're either telling them that, you know, these other people in front of you had a problem with the job, or, you know, it's just totally obvious to you that you are not nearly the first choice on their list. So either way, that sucks. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think it's often you want to get the hire right, of course, but it looks much better to a fan base and for a program and for an AD and for the coach you hire when that coach is hired quickly.
You may have heard that Drake is introducing Eric Henderson to the public and the Drake community tomorrow, but I am told they're going to push that to next Monday because this is a recruiting week, and then next week is a dead week, and they want Hendo recruiting as much as possible and putting some kind of team together for next year. So I don't see that officially yet. AD, have you seen anything yet? But I do think it's going to be Monday of next week, not tomorrow, as we initially thought. Andy, how many Big Ten ADs do you think out there just went, okay, let me make a note of that. Eric Henderson.
Well,
right, keep an eye on him over
I
at
think
Drake,
every
Eric
AD
Henderson.
right now has a list, and that list gets updated each spring and probably throughout the year a bunch of times. And I think, you know, they've got Brian Harden on kind of a watch list, you know, and Drake on a watch list where they're just like, okay, let's see what is going on over there. Let's keep one eye, or every now and then let's kind of go back and check on Drake and see what's going on. I mean, it's just
makes
a
sense.
Smart thing to do. The last three coaches have been home run hires.
Ali Farouk-Manesh took the Colorado State job, and we mentioned this Friday. Farouk-Manesh even had his large shorts worked into the contract. Andy, you know why he's got those big shorts.
Oh, just huge balls for that
Yeah,
shot.
yeah,
So,
you saw him take
got to
that
fit his
shot.
balls. Got to go get around his nuts.
So he is the head coach. I wanted to mention this just for a moment because I thought this was so cool. Ben Jacobson flew out there for Ali Farouk-Manesh's introduction as the head coach. And I think that's the cool part of staying in one place for 4 or 5 years and getting that bond with your head coach the way those two did. And what a cool thing to have Ben there supporting Ali as he gets his first head coaching job. Not surprising, but cool.
This is what we like. Remember when Alford was hired at Iowa, and then for no reason, Bob Knight was just pissed at him. Remember that? He was just like, he had a problem with Alford.
Yeah.
He's like, Alford knows where to find me if he wants to talk. We were like, what is your problem? Why are you mad at Steve Alford? He's one of your former players on a national championship team. He's from Indiana. I mean, I thought you liked him. Why would you have a problem with it? Clearly he felt like Alford needed to kiss the ring and wasn't. And
Right.
he felt challenged by Steve Alford coming back into the Big Ten at the time when he was still coaching in the Big Ten. So I thought that was so weak. It made Bob Knight look so small when that happened. And it never made any sense. And then when they got back together, right, when they met for the first time, it was this huge media circus, ended up taking away from the team, and nobody ever really could figure out what, if anything, Steve Alford did to deserve that from his former coach.
We asked him, and he just kind of nervously chuckled about it because he didn't want to be sideways with Bob Knight.
No, we'd asked Bob Knight about it too, and he got pissed all over for us asking. We're like, well, yeah, but you're making a big deal out of your former player being in the Big Ten. Why?
Yeah, he was Kim Mulkey before Kim Mulkey.
Yeah.
They handled questions about the same fashion much of the time.
Bob Knight was kind of funny about that. He had a little bit of a twinkle in his eye. Kim Mulkey is pure evil. She's pure venom.
Jeez.
She's a snake.
Wanted to put in a plug for What's Bugging Andy last night. I thought it was just outstanding. It was so well written, but more importantly, I think it reminded many of us of something we already feel, but it was nice to have it brought to the forefront, which is just, I really appreciate Tom Davis. Appreciate the coach he was, more importantly, the man he was. And you just hit so many points that I agree strongly with. And it was anybody who's missed it, you can find it at who13.com or on any of our platforms. But I've gotten quite a bit of feedback about it, and I think it's wonderful that it's kind of come full circle with Ben McCullum, who went to Tom Davis camps. That was the first coach that McCullum looked up to. We saw that really cool picture of little Ben along with Tom, with maybe a little bit too much chest hair poking out of his polo shirt there back at a camp a long time ago. But this is great for everybody to, well, Tom Davis is still with us. What, 86 years old, Andy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 86.
86 years old, but just a good man, a good coach, and a good father, a good friend. And he should be remembered in the best possible terms.
Yeah, and bringing him back into the news. There's that picture you're talking about there.
Yeah. He just needs a gold chain with that shirt.
Yeah. And what a fun picture to show. And here we are now. It'll be Ben McCullum holding basketball camps, and maybe some kid will eventually be the next Iowa coach that is in one of those camps. But and I think you need a reason to bring these guys back out from time to time. You don't have to have one, but it's fun when you do. And having Tom Davis's name in the news last week gives us that chance. And yeah, he's 86. He's not going to be with us forever. But I remember coming to Drake, and I moved here from St. Louis, which is one of the worst college sports towns in the country. We just don't have a good college team there in the city. Missouri's teams weren't great. Illinois' teams weren't great. You just didn't really have much passion. It was a pro sports market. And I got here and I would hear a whole bunch of my friends at Drake were from Iowa, and they were big fans of Iowa basketball. And I was always kind of like, well, why? Because they didn't won a national championship. And I would follow it, that way, but I didn't remember the Hawkeyes being a great team. Remember Indiana being a great team, and Michigan certainly having great teams, but Iowa in their minds was part of their culture, and they loved watching the Hawkeyes, and they would just call him Dr. Tom Davis, Dr. Tom. And he was, to them, he was somebody held in very high regard, but at the same time, they all felt like they, kind of knew him, like he was one of them, and was just a really humble, good, approachable man. And I never forgot that. And then, when he came to Drake, I met him and got to know him, and it all made perfect sense. And then you read up on his history, and he had a really legitimate basketball pedigree. You realize that he was an innovator and a highly respected coach, but also just the kind of guy that would, I would go to Drake basketball practice, and he would walk up to me and be like, "Hey, I was watching Sound Off last night. That was really funny. I love that." And he would just talk to you like just a regular guy. That made me feel really good. But also, you saw the results that he had immediately there at Drake. He is the one that refurbished that program. They had a winning season under him for the first time in forever.
He brought the credibility.
Everybody knew him. Players started transferring to Drake who wanted to play for Dr. Tom because they grew up loving him. And then he transferred it over to Keno. And while we were all a little bit skeptical of that, it had the Dr. Tom endorsement. And the moment Keno hit it out of the park, we all thought, oh, yeah.
Makes sense.
He was raised by Dr. Tom Davis, and Dr. Tom Davis set him up with that job. So it made perfect sense. Even Cyclone fans, I've heard from many of them over the years about how, he's the coach of their arch rival.
Yeah.
They really disliked some of his players.
I think Cyclone Jerry is the only person I ever knew that didn't like Dr. Tom Davis.
Really? Okay, well, not surprised by that. But the Cyclone fans that I had talked to just still held him in high regard, really respected him as a competitor and as a good person. And it's good to see that matter. But we have had a run of men and women coaching our teams here in this state that we really like as people. And that's not to be taken for granted, because it doesn't always happen. Sometimes there are coaches that you don't like as people, and maybe they're effective coaches, or for whatever reason they stay there for a while. But when you do like a person and they do well, man, that feels good. To feel good about the cheers that you give to people, to feel like, oh, they deserve these, not just as a successful coach, but as a person and a role model, and somebody that understands the gravity of the job that they've got, and somebody that doesn't go looking for them, doesn't go demanding that they be respected, or constantly touting the things that they have done and accomplished. That wasn't Dr. Tom Davis. He never did that stuff. He let the players get the flowers. And when you have an opportunity to turn it around and recognize a guy like that, we like to take it. And I was happy to do that. And I hope he does get to see that. I don't know that it'll make a big difference to him or anything, because
I'm sure he will see it, and he'll appreciate it. And he was kind of our first hot topic. I mean, really hot topic that went for months, if not years, on Sound Off on WHO 13, because it started nearly 30 years ago, and it had become the big talking point among Hawkeye fans. They got where they felt like Tom Davis could not get them to the Final Four, and they were settling for what to them at the time felt like slightly above mediocrity. Yes, we'll win an NCAA tournament game every couple of years, a Sweet 16, been to one Elite Eight with Dr. Tom, but not going to get to that next step. Got to get another coach that could take us to that next step. Well, they got the other coach, and they did take it to the next step, the step down, and then another step down. And then Fran McCaffrey kind of helped get back up a step, but they haven't approached the Tom Davis era. And then it becomes this cautionary tale of be careful what you wish for. But I think with Ben McCollum, as you said last night, you think McCollum will get Iowa eventually to a Sweet 16, which would be the first one since Dr. Tom coached Iowa to, on his way, pushed out the door. His final game was a loss in the Sweet 16. And I think McCollum makes so much sense, because when people say that, like, there's a problem with Carver Hawkeye Arena, or Iowa fans aren't passionate about basketball, that doesn't make any sense to Ben McCollum, because he was there for the 90s with Dr. Tom Davis. He knows what it was like in that building. He knows that fans will get behind the program if you give them a reason to cheer. So I think it's just a really nice full circle moment with this kid who went to Tom Davis camp and wanted to be a coach like Tom Davis. And now he is the coach at Iowa, and he will not take that for granted.
Yeah. And you can see, I feel like Hawkeye fans have a realistic expectation right now, because it's been a hard road since Dr. Tom Davis. The best they've ever done is, what Steve Alford and Fran McCaffrey did for them. But, I think they understand that Ben McCollum has a system that needs to be put in place first at Iowa. And maybe it happens right away, like it did at Drake. Maybe it could. He's shown he's done it before.
It'll be harder,
but maybe it doesn't.
I mean,
I think he is saying that that's what he needs to do first. And there needs to be a transitional bridge here. And when he gets that in place and he gets the right players, and again, that could happen really fast now, or maybe it takes a few years. But once he gets that together, he believes that he can and will win. But through it all, I feel pretty confident that, Ben McCollum is not the same guy that Dr. Tom was. He's not quite like that.
No.
But I do think that he's a very honorable, humble guy who grew up cheering for the right people. And he witnessed and valued a very visible Iowa program, a very, it was a little different at the time. I mean, they're playing on local TV. There's less other things on television. Right. They had more undivided attention than you could probably expect to get these days. But still, he saw that was possible. It's absolutely possible. And that's the goal that you feel like he is going to be working toward, and you feel really good about that goal, I think, if you're a Hawkeye fan.
And now here's comedian Brian Regan on the difference between men and women when on an outing together.
My wife and I have a good friend who got divorced about 6 months ago. I went golfing with him last week. First time I'd seen him since then. I get back from golf and my wife goes, "How's Gary?" I don't know. "Oh, I thought you were going golfing with Gary today." "Well, I did." "And you don't know how he's doing?" "I never really came up." "Did you ask me to ask him that?" "No, I thought maybe you would think to ask him that." "I didn't think of that." "Well, is he dating anyone?" I don't know. How would I know something like that? Were you two in the same golf cart? Yeah. You were in the same golf cart for 4 hours, and you don't know if he's dating anyone? I know he's got a new driver. How is that possible that wouldn't come up? How is that possible that would come up? At 150 markers right there, you're probably at about 135. Are you dating anyone?
There are some differences. Confluence is the official beer of Murph and Andy. Confluence, where good things come together. Came together for you on that Friday show, Andy, as you opened up that peanut butter porter.
I got one more of those. I think I'm saving it for this Friday. I love those.
Yeah, I saw our friend Gilly made a delivery of the downtown throwdown to a friend, or maybe it was his brother, somebody up in an area where they can't get the downtown throwdown. So that's when you have a good friend who'll drive you a delivery like the Bandit.
Found some of those over in Omaha, actually.
Did you?
Last weekend. Yeah, I did. They had them over there. It was cool.
That's good to see it branch out. Let's get some more.
But wait, there's more from Either Or Eatery and Patio.
On Friday and Saturday, I drove by Either Or.
Was it
I
nuts?
was just over in that area. First of all, I was turning on to Grand from what is that, 60th Street over there as you're coming around from Ingersoll. And I had the windows down because the weather was so warm on Friday. I was picking Elin up from guitar lessons, and we had the windows down, and I heard like screaming and laughter and stuff. And I was like, what is going on around here?
Zipker?
No. Either Or's playground looked like a school at recess. There were except all of the teachers were drinking. It was like there were so many kids there. The whole patio was absolutely packed. Then we went by on Saturday and it was the same thing. Those two beautiful
every time
days.
We go by, they were like, "Where was this when we had kids at?"
Oh my God. There were so many people there. I'm so glad to see them doing so well, and everybody likes it. The wind got, and then the weather just turned and on its heel. But even on Friday, it was very, very windy. I think it actually blew some glassware off the table. Got so bad on Friday that a portion of Hickman Road from 53rd Street to 56th Street in Des Moines had to be closed because the wind blew over utility poles. Look at that.
Yeah.
Coming right out of the south, it just blew those things over. Picture courtesy the Des Moines Register there. But then yesterday, the weather turned on its heel, and we had this. Not that. This.
Snow.
Man, we had like green budding leaves on the trees, And then
it was
giant,
like
fat
cotton balls
snowflakes.
coming down too. This was thick snow in our neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. North of us, of course, got even more. There was snow all over the place. It was like, how many weekends can you think of that are butted in by, like, you've got patio weather and then fireplace weather within hours of one another?
Well, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes.
Okay, most airlines are banning cell phone power banks. Do you have one of these? I've got a whole bunch of these.
You have to have.
Backpack? Like just to...
No, just a little.
just to charge it
up the battery.
They're
You
banning
charge,
those?
you charge this, and then you can use it to charge your cell phone. What apparently they can catch on fire.
Oh.
And then when they do catch on fire, it burns really, really hot and can really cause a lot of trouble. It comes after a portable power bank was blamed for an inferno that engulfed an Air Busan plane in South Korea before takeoff back in late January. Now, airlines across Asia are implementing new laws to prevent another disaster. So an airline called Cathay Pacific just this week becomes the latest airline to enforce strict bans, prohibiting passengers from using power banks to charge devices or charging the banks themselves through the in-seat USB ports. Power banks also banned from being stored in the overhead bins. Has not come to the American Airlines yet, but I imagine there's a chance that will happen. But I use these all the time.
They need to make sure their outlets are working, like their plugins are working then. I mean, how many times have you been on a plane and you plug in and it's dead?
Yeah.
You know, so get those things working if you're going to ban these.
Make a trade.
Yeah.
Now, you want us to do that?
Yeah,
Well,
you do
this. Yeah.
Yeah, and get some Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi. Come on, it's 2025.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, from the files of Some Headlines Don't Need Stories, we bring you this. Man has no idea who is putting gallons of pee in his recycling bin. This is in Portland, Oregon. You can see all these gallon containers.
That's not apple juice.
No, that ain't lemonade. Alex Van Doyne said the problem started back in September when he noticed his recycling bin hadn't been collected. So the recycling hauler refused to take the bin's contents because urine is a biohazard. The peer, though, kept dumping gallons and jugs into Van Doyne's bin every day. Finally, he stopped putting the bin at the curb, and the suspect is now using other neighbors' bins to dispose of the pee. There is video of the person dumping the pee, but it's too grainy to ID the guy. Here it is.
He looks tall.
That's a BMW. He's getting out of. First of all, that's a lot of pee. This guy is not using a toilet.
Are these trucker bombs? Like,
yeah. Well, if you threw them on the side of the highway, they would be.
Right, but he doesn't normally. The suspect did not pull up in a truck. He pulled up in a BMW.
Yeah, it's a Beamer bomb.
I don't get it.
That's how much. What is this guy drinking? First of all, is
this some kind of fetish he has?
He also looks dehydrated if it's that bright yellow. The one on the left is a little orange, which, what is that, kidney problems?
Yeah, Rhabdo.
Yeah, Rhabdo. There's like a Rhabdo gallon in there, too. Trying to figure this out, this guy is just this mad peer all around town.
It's kind of the color of the original Gatorade that came with the orange cap and the glass bottle. You know,
that was pretty green.
Was that more green?
If pee looks like that, you may have some nuclear waste in you.
Yeah, that's possible.
Minor league baseball franchises have long been at the forefront of ball game food innovations, but this one might need to be sent back. This season, the Hartford Yard Goats, always one of the great names in minor league baseball, and there are some really good names out there. AA franchise in Connecticut have debuted their Float Your Goat item. Here it is. A quarter-pound beef hot dog topped with peppers, onions, bacon, brown mustard, and then it is submerged in a glass of 100% pure goat's milk.
Oh. Now the sandwich, the hot dog, sounded pretty good.
Sounds great. And then, but it's
why put it in the goat's milk? And that's just like a milkshake, right?
A goat's milk?
You think it really is goat's milk?
You can buy goat's milk. I know that. Isn't it weird though? Like cow's milk is just totally normal. We all think of that as completely normal. But milk from any other animal is like repellent to us.
Could you milk me, Fokker?
Yeah, dog's milk, or, even if it's like a yak or a water buffalo or a goat, you're just like, oh, what? Sheep's milk? Even though it's, why is that any stranger than cow's milk? It's just something we're used to versus something we're not. We'll finish up with 2 truths and a lie.
You, sir, are a liar. Liar, liar, your pants are on fire!
This is about bones.
Bones.
Okay.
Bones.
Bones.
2 of these are true. 1 is not true. You tell me which?
Okay. 2 truths and a lie.
Number 1, we are born with 350 bones, but we lose some of them as we age. Most adults have just 206. The only unattached bone in the human body, that is, not attached to another bone, is found only in genetic males. It's called the hyboid bone, and it's found in the neck. It forms the basis of what is commonly known as the Adam's apple. And finally, number 3, some mammals have actual bones in their penises. Some of those bones, like those from raccoons, are made into jewelry by primitive cultures.
Jeez.
So a raccoon boner really is.
I believe
2
that.
truths, 1 lie.
Yeah, I believe that one.
2 truths and 1 lie. I think number 1 is the lie. I think that losing like 100 bones over time. I'm going lie there.
But I think that's true. I don't think you lose them, but they like fuse together and become one. But it's like your skull when you're born is all different pieces, so that your brain can develop, and then it kind of grows into one. I'm gonna go number 2. I know men have an Adam's apple,
right,
but I don't think it's because we have an extra bone in our neck. That's where I'm going.
Andrew's right.
Andrew did it again.
Yeah. It's only a minor flub there, actually, though. There is a hyoid bone that's in your neck that floats, and it's not what gives you an Adam's apple, but it is a floating bone, kind of right in here, and it's not attached. It's attached by tendons and muscles and stuff like that, but not attached to another bone. And it helps you with speech, apparently.
Wow.
But
And women have it also.
Women have it also. Yeah, everybody's got it. You're right about the bones fusing together. Babies have floating bones all over the place, and they quickly fuse together and become the human body as we know it as adults. Well, that's your more, everybody.
All right, nicely done. And Trudy, yes, the AD always plays background music for the more segment.
Yeah, you're not just hearing things.
Yeah, you're not just hearing things. Just a little groove. It gets Andy going, makes him feel comfortable as he slides from one crazy topic to another. All right, now time for Throwdowns.
Throwdowns. It's Throwdowns, backed by Heartland Tire and Auto.
Heartland Tire and Auto, treating you like family in Ankeny, Waukee, Knoxville, Boone, and Creston, an authorized dealer of Bridgestone and Firestone tires. Murph, we'll start with you. NFL league meetings are this week, and one item on the agenda is the legality of the tush push. Do you think this play should be banned in the NFL?
Gosh, I would like to get any plays out of football that have no drama whatsoever. Like the kicked extra point, they've tried to make it a little more dramatic, but the kickoffs, 80% of the time, still no action. Extra points, no action. Tush push is automatic. They get it almost every single time. So I would like to see it out. I mean, there's part of me that wants to thinking of, if you don't like it, stop it. But clearly it can't be stopped. So I do think they need to do something about it.
Yeah, I can't add a whole lot to that. It just seems it's not in the spirit of the game. It seems like, lifting a guy up to block kicks and stuff like that. I think they they need to. We all know this isn't real football. You need to get rid of it.
Andy, the Dodgers are the defending World Series champions. They have the biggest payroll in baseball. They're off to a 5-0 start to the season. The Yankees, defending AL champions, just hit 15 home runs in a 3-game sweep.
Torpedo bat.
I'll give you the Dodgers and the Yankees or the field. So those two or the other 28 teams to win this year's World Series. Which side are you on?
I think I'll take the field. It should be this easy. It never has been in Major League Baseball. If it was, the Yankees would win almost every year, or the Dodgers would win almost every year, and they don't. Yeah, I mean, they should be the favorites because they have great teams and they spend that much money, but I still don't think that one of those teams will end up winning the World Series.
I'll go the other way. I get both, right? I don't have to pick one.
Nope.
I get Yankees or Dodgers.
Yes.
Yeah, Andy's right. The postseason can be a crapshoot, but they're spending so much more money than anybody else. It's like 2 all-star teams. I'll take those two.
All right, Murph, my son Charlie is really into Pokemon cards, and I've gotten into it with him, and we play this battle game with the cards. You battle each other. What's something that your kids got into that you ended up actually enjoying?
I think it's Lego movies. Like, they played Legos so much, and they dragged me to the first Lego movie, and I didn't want to go because I had been to a Pokemon movie, which was the longest 90 minutes of my life.
Yeah, they're rough.
And I do remember, I vividly remember just looking over at another dad in the theater and both of us giving each other the shrug, like, I don't know what the hell's going on. And just having that look of simply, it felt like it was 6 hours long. Of course, they loved it. So I never did get into the Pokemon, still went to the movies, but the Lego movies were a revelation to me, especially Batman and all that. I was like, God, this is actually fun. So they loved Legos, and we've still kept all that. The grandkids will be able to play with the Legos someday. It's just so good to see kids do something that's not electronics based. Just something where you use your mind, whether it's a board game or a card game or Pokemon, just something.
Well, you're not going to like my answer. It's video games, and it's cheating because I liked them anyway. But I don't like. Eddie loves Minecraft. Elon likes it too, and I don't. And they play.
I've played a good amount of Minecraft. It's
they play Animal Crossing and stuff, but they also like Mario Kart and Legend of Zelda, and there's some good Switch like Mario sports games that are fun too. So I like that, to my wife's chagrin. I'm like the safe harbor for video games for them. If they're playing with me, she doesn't really say anything to them, or at least doesn't use the same tone. Yeah, man, I like video games, and I like the fact that my kids like them too. We play them together.
I like it. That's Throwdowns.
All right, Grimaldi's fan photos. Send your fan photos to Murph_Andy at iowaeverywhere.com. Presented by Grimaldi's Coal Brick Oven Pizzeria in West Des Moines and District at Prairie Trail, Ankeny. Who do we have, AD?
Yeah, I thought we'd go with Drake today. This is Matt Nielsen and his daughter Riley, big Drake fans. They went to a bunch of the women's games this year and sent this in. And yeah, it's a good day for Drake, so figured I'd highlight them today. But yes, keep sending us your pictures at Murph_Andy at iowaeverywhere.com is the email address. You can always tweet them at us also. I'll see them there too.
$50 gift card given out on Fridays to Grimaldi's. By the way, it is official that Drake introduction of Eric Henderson as head coach is moved to Monday so that recruiting can continue this week. Next week.
Got to build a roster.
A dead week. Yeah, got a lot of work ahead. It is time for the Andrew Downs audio drop of the day, the AD squared.
Yeah, it's powered by Game Day Men's Health. I go to the one in Ankeny each week to get a testosterone replacement shot. You can get a free consultation at Ankeny, West Des Moines, over in North Liberty on the eastern side of the state. They'll let you know what they can help you with, what you need. Maybe you don't need anything. They'll tell you that as well. Really professional, really casual. I've really enjoyed my time there at Game Day. I saw Chris Williams is coming up on 1 year, and he said like he saw a picture of himself from a year ago, and he looks like a completely different dude. So
he does.
It can do a lot. Andy, I went with hockey here for the audio drop. Seth Jarvis is the center for the Carolina Hurricanes rather. He scored his 5th shorthand goal of the season. That tied him for the franchise record with former player Kevin Adams, who's now the GM of the Buffalo Sabres. After the game, Jarvis was asked if he's going to follow in those footsteps.
The guy you're tied with is the GM in Buffalo now. Is that GM in your future? Is that the natural progression? Kevin Adams is the...
Me being a GM?
Yeah.
God, no, I don't. I'm not going to be a GM ever.
That's kind of an odd question to ask. Yeah. They must have known that he was going to give some kind of an animated response.
Well, he gave it. He definitely gave it. A quickie poll results presented by WCI Pools and Spas in Ames and Urbandale.
The NCAA men's basketball tournament has been more interesting than usual or boring than usual. 81% say more boring than usual. 20%, 19%. I guess we have to round one up and one down.
Yeah.
Both have the
go with 80-20.
Usually run up. Yeah. 80-20. More boring than interesting.
A week from today, they'll crown a national champion in men's basketball. Thank you for being part of Murph and Andy here on a Monday and for supporting local media on Iowa Everywhere. Please like and subscribe. Invite your friends to our party. We're back Wednesday, and we hope you are too.